Welcome to the Flood and Drought Research Infrastructure Scoping Study webinar on requirements and rationale from our first community workshop we held in January 2021. I'm Victoria Barlow and the Project Manager for the FDRI Scoping Study. If you're not familiar with the project, we broadcast an introductory webinar in October 2020, which is accessible on our webpage, the address of which will be shown at the end of this presentation. I'd like to introduce you to today's presenters. They are Dr. Gareth Old from UKCEH, who's the project PI and lead, and Dr. Gemma Coxon from the University of Bristol, who's also part of the project team. With no further ado, I'll pass you to Gareth.
Thank you, Victoria. Research infrastructures underpin several areas of environmental science. The NERC farm aircraft supports atmospheric science, whereas the Attenborough ship supports polar research. Although significant investments have been made in hydrological research programs and many innovative technologies are now adopted, the community does not have a research infrastructure to integrate this over the time and space scales that are necessary to make the step changes in our understanding and to address current challenges. Previous NERC consultations identified the need for this scoping study, and it began in May of last year and is being led by UKCEH in collaboration with colleagues from the British Geological Survey, the University of Bristol and Imperial College London. We are consulting the community to identify infrastructure requirements and their rationale, and to then prioritise these, enabling a business case to be developed for NERC to submit to UKRI this autumn, which will include a series of investment options. This webinar provides a summary of the workshop that we held in January. The objective of this workshop was to understand further community requirements for the infrastructure, their rationale, and to identify common views after exploring the diversity of opinions. The workshop represented a key step in our scoping study, and the knowledge gained is now enabling the project to identify key elements of the infrastructure and to develop an approach to proposing investment options. I will now hand over to Gemma, who will describe the workshop.
Thanks, Gareth. I want to start by talking about the workshop design. To ensure a collaborative process and smooth running of the workshop was planned and delivered using an independent facilitator, GameShift, and we used a tool called Mural to document and synthesize the contributions from attendees. This was really important to ensure that everyone's ideas were captured throughout the day. As you can see from the mural image below, there were a lot of ideas being shared. Participants were divided into 6 carefully selected groups based on their expertise related to one of 3 themes: either process understanding, phenomena quantification, or modelling and prediction. They were then assigned 1 flood and 1 drought question related to their theme. For example, how can we improve our models of flooding and high flow so that we can realise the benefits in terms of improved flood prediction and forecasting? Participants remained in the same group throughout the day, working through the following cycles. Cycle 1 focused on the science questions and challenges. Each group discussed the science questions in detail to understand what needed to be achieved to address it. For example, is greater process understanding needed for specific environments or land use types? Are more observations needed in specific settings? This then fed into Cycle 2, which focused on the groups identifying a list of prioritised data needs to address their science questions. Cycle 3 then focused on the FDRI monitoring and data infrastructure management. In this cycle, the participants were asked to consider the risks, opportunities, sustainability, and societal benefits of the FDRI infrastructure. After each cycle, the group fed back to plenary, and whilst doing so, other participants could add their ideas and notes to the mural in a breakout group's designated area, This led to further whole group questions and conversations that were captured. In the final plenary, key ideas were summarised and discussed among the group. I will now hand back to Gareth to summarise some of the key points that arose during these cycles.
Thank you. It was clear from this workshop and previous consultations that there's a lot of enthusiasm for an investment in floods and droughts research infrastructure. Informative discussions were held on both floods and droughts. And indeed, it was recognised that floods and droughts represent a continuum with the importance of the transitions, which can be rapid, between the two being acknowledged. Although many ideas were put forward at the workshop, there was limited time to develop detailed infrastructure options. The slide that Gemma has shared with you already really demonstrated how many ideas were put on our mural whiteboard. I'll now summarise some key points from each of the cycles. The first cycle focused on dissecting the science questions. Many examples were provided demonstrating how participants were able to usefully dissect our high-level questions, making them more specific to their challenges. This is a necessary step in identifying the specific infrastructure requirements. Questions around the effects of land use and land management featured, as did the hydrological responses of small catchments, where existing observations are often very limited. It is clear that the infrastructure should enable additional activities, and in particular, those that focus on understanding the impacts of floods and droughts. Cycle 2 focused on community data needs. Data needs were recognised for all parts of the hydrological cycle. Improved quantification of inputs, partitioning, storage, and release of water in catchments is needed. Cases were also made for observations of key catchment properties as well as processes. The importance of making better use of existing data was also widely recognised. The third cycle focused on community monitoring and data infrastructure requirements. A clear requirement was that new infrastructure should focus on reducing our uncertainty in the observations that we make. Furthermore, any new infrastructure should complement that already exists in catchments. The importance of appropriate data management and integration infrastructure was also highlighted. I'll now hand back to Gemma, who will share some feedback from the workshop.
Overall, the feedback for the workshop was very positive. In a closing poll of the attendees, 65% indicated that their expectations for the workshop had been met or exceeded. This meant that participants thought they were able to demonstrate their support for the investment, highlight their requirements, and importantly, learn from others. It was also very rewarding for the team to receive a number of direct complimentary messages from attendees, such as those seen in the speech bubble on the slide. I'll now hand back to Gareth to talk about the next steps from the workshop.
Thank you. Okay, the project team are currently identifying the infrastructure elements using all the knowledge that we gained from our consultations to date. As an example, an element may be the instrumentation that is needed to measure accurately out-of-bank river flows. As a team, we will then explore systematic methods to prioritize these elements. The MOSCO prioritization methodology is being considered, and this identifies options as must-have options, should have, could have, and won't have. Based on this prioritization, we will propose a series of possible investment options that may be categorized as a do-nothing option, a bronze, silver, or a gold. Ongoing consultation will be undertaken by the project team to develop these options. A second community workshop will be a major part of this ongoing consultation, and this will be used to discuss and develop our proposed options. A business case will then be submitted to UKRI in the autumn, containing a series of investment options. This potential investment in flood and drought research infrastructure represents a huge opportunity for the community as a whole, and we value your engagement as it will ensure that we maximise the benefits. Therefore, I'd like to finish with this slide that illustrates the ways in which you can find out more about the study and how you can engage with it. A lot of information may be found on our web page, in addition to an invitation to opt in at various levels of engagement. We would also welcome any questions or comments via our email address that is also given. We hope you have found this summary of the workshop useful, and we look forward to engaging with you further. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.